Welcome to Catch You Outdoors. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modies. This podcast is about living and playing in the Florida Keys. I cover my favorite sport, fishing, but also all the many things to see and do down here in the islands. Thank you so much for tuning in, and now it's time to kick back and relax with me in the Keys. Oh boy, this week's episode of Catch You Outdoors is number 157. Hello all. Hope you're about to have or have had a great day. It's Monday in the Keys. Welcome to Season 4, by the way, of Catch You Outdoors. You can listen to Catch You Outdoors on most streaming platforms, but if it's missing from yours, please let me know, and I'll be glad to see if I can get it added for you. Yes, the intro music is new. Surprise! I wrote that tune. It's part of a new song I just released called Bayou Bay. Yes, you can download it or stream it on most music services if you like. I'm going to add that for a while. I'm going to use it for both the intro and exit for now. Well, I'll add others along the way, but that was just the first one I took a crack at. It sounds keysy, so it may stay for longer than even I think it might. We'll just see what happens. I might write another one. I love writing reggae. It's fun. I did this because I used to pay, all of us pay for licensing. You have to pay to run other people's music on your sites, or you have to get a license for one song, which is what I had for the intro. And you pay a fee up front, and then that's it. It's yours. You get to use it whenever you want to. So it's difficult, and I like music so much. I like to differ and move things around. And with this new season starting, my brain was going crazy. It was on overdrive. What can I do? I need to mess with everything on this to make Catch You Outdoors just a little different. And so that's what I did. Since I've been writing music. Thanks much to Billy Davidson for producing my tunes, and Robbie Spagnoletti. On drums, Jay Capicello on bass. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are fantastic and fun to work with. And thanks for making my reggae dream come true. Some new stuff to announce. I made major changes to the Catch You Outdoors website. It's now one simple page. I used to have this fancy website when I was doing my guiding stuff with all those, the usual pages, how much and where and about me and all that stuff on all these pretty pictures and that kind of thing. I'm like, why? That's not what this is about. So I scaled it back. It's still there. It's catchyoutdoors.com, catchyoutdoors.com. I need to enunciate that. But it's one simple page. Start at the top, work your way down. There's an intro of me. There is a little thing to click on to listen to podcasts. It will automatically go out now to podcast service. I believe it's a Spotify menu is what it is, but it'll pull up anything you want to play, and it will play on your services. So just do that. It saves me from double work. It saves me from having to put stuff on two different spots when it's already out there. So there you go. If you've saved a bookmark for Catch You Outdoors, you might want to refresh, because you may just get the old page when you go in there on a bookmark. You might want to refresh the page or close it completely and start it back up again. Let's see. Yeah, one link will send you to my podcast. All my books are there in order now. You don't have to click a separate page to go get books or a separate page to order. That's all there. And a list of my music is also included on there. Just the names of the songs so that you can go out and hunt for them if you want to play them. I've decided by special request to once again add a title to each of my podcast episodes. Yeah, starting with this season. People referred to it and said, it was okay when you don't have it, but then I have to go search on what each one's about, and some I don't want to listen to. And I get that's okay. I don't expect you to listen to every single one. I'd like it if you did, but it's okay if you don't. So if you're looking for specific subjects, I get that. So I will do that again. I will put a subject on each one. I'm not sure. This one might be Mangrove Madness. I'll let you figure out what that's about. So anyway, yeah, so we might be doing that. So no, not might, we will. We will absolutely be doing that. However, you should know that it will only cover a small portion of what I'm going to talk about, because the idea behind Season 4 was to become more random instead of this lockdown format that I was using during most of season 3. So this is going to be more like it's more like a live radio show, which is what I did for years, but different, because obviously I don't have callers. But season 4 will be less structured. That's for my benefit, and I also hope it's for you listeners as well. Also, you may encounter a guest every now and then. Not for the entire episode, but for features about Key's life. Yeah, it'd probably be a phone call rather than on the microphone. But then again, you never know what's going to happen. So that's what makes this fun. I get to do whatever I want to do. But mostly about, features about Key's life and what's going on down here. And lastly, useless information will stay for now. I was threatened. The tradition lives on. This is really funny. When I announced that I was moving things around, I immediately got 2 emails. One an unknown and one a known quantity. Do not remove useless information. I'm like, okay. That dates way, way, way back. Okay, that dates all the way back into the midlife of my radio show. Years ago is when that started. And then my replacement for the hosting of the show, Debbie, she had to run it too. They'd get angry at her if she didn't do it. So, and then it just, when she quit the show, it just came to me. I thought, okay, well, I'll just do it again. What the heck? I honestly didn't think much of it or whether it would even work. I just happened to have the book, and I was looking at it one day, and I'm like, maybe I should just go on and do it. And I did it. And thank you, Rick, so much for making the lead-in music for me, the lead-up stuff. I appreciate that. The intro, I guess I should call it. And so there it is. And no, I won't take it away. Not yet. For now, as I like to say. Let's see. Tropical weather is suddenly back in the news after an unexplained hiatus. This is really driving a lot of people that love to follow weather crazy. Mike's weather page would probably be the absolute prime. I think that poor guy was going to commit Harry Carey or something because he didn't have anything to talk about. And it was also showing on our local news as well. What was really, really happening was we had all these people in the news services, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beaches, and of course you can imagine West Coast. They love to cover hurricane season. It adds to the weather page, so to speak. And they weren't. There was nothing going on. Matter of fact, they blew it. They weren't even close to the right numbers or what should have been happening through September. So Mother Nature kind of made up for it. Not really. We've got a really big mess down in the Caribbean. This is down below the Gulf of Mexico, down below the Yucatan Peninsula. So if you haven't been looking and you haven't been watching, you might want to if you live on the west coast of Florida. We got one out in the Atlantic Ocean, which is a fish storm. It's just going to turn north and go right on up through the Atlantic Ocean and not affect anybody in the U.S. The other storm, this morning's forecast was for 90% formation of a tropical storm. And then probably a hurricane, because once it gets in the Gulf of Mexico, it hits warm water and all kinds of wonderful things happen. The track right now is showing the Panhandle and left to New Orleans, Louisiana. However, we all know how that works. It can easily shift eastward, so please keep an eye on it. There's a high pressure system that it's going to circle off of on the right hand side on the east to the east of it, which should shove it in that direction. But if for some reason the high dissipates or moves, then all bets are off. So it's just one of those things you really do want to keep an eye on. And get ready, But nevertheless, it's going to completely screw up the weather around here for several days. I already noticed. I went to the weather report. Today is our last day of decent winds. It starts to ramp up tomorrow, Tuesday. Gets worse on Wednesday, much worse on Thursday and Friday. That's us. Now, we're way over in Key Largo. We're nowhere near where this thing's going to be, but it's going to have reaches outward from the center of the storm. And it's a big storm, so it'll be a broad storm, not a skinny little thing. And we'll be on the windy side. If you're on the east side of any hurricane, you're on the windy side. And you're going to get the feeder bands and things like that. So I doubt there's going to be any fishing this week. But that's okay. I got plenty of other things I can get done around here. Yeah, right. Now, here's the cool part. The weather down this way has finally been absolutely beautiful. After a pretty dreadful summer. Oppressive humidity. Jeez. led to many, many days of heat warnings, you know? It's like every day. Oh, it's going to be 109 today, 112 one day, you know? And boy, you could feel it. I ain't kidding. And I'm not used to that because when you live on an island, you get sea breezes, and we weren't getting squat. We were just getting nothing but humidity is what we were getting. The world was damp. You'd wake up in the morning and try to look out the windows, and all your windows are dripping condensation from the air conditioning being on. It was crazy, just absolutely crazy. Not fun. Not to mention 10 minutes in the yard doing anything would turn you into a sweat bucket. You know, it's just like, this is out of control. So I guess it was Friday. Let's see. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, it was Friday. Friday's when I noticed things were changing. Saturday's when it got really better, and Sunday was beautiful. And so, I mean, it was perfect. Low winds, low humidity. It finally broke. So Janelle and I set out to explore. Yeah. The boat came into play on Sunday. More than fish. Yeah, I guess that's something we like to do, is the exploration part. We really do. We have done that down here in the Keys since we met back in the mid-90s. We love to get in the boat and just go see what's out there. And that's because there's so much water to explore. It's kind of frightening. Even though we spend a good deal of time fishing and doing the fishing thing, we're now in an area that just lends itself to exploration. Because we didn't spend a lot of time doing that up here in Key Largo. We spent most of our time in the Islamorada down to Marathon area, exploring mostly the Florida Bay and the Gulf. So up here, there is an abundance of small creeks that run in and out of all these little island flats up here. And it's totally different than down in Islamorada. Islamorada, you got to watch where you are going. If you don't follow the park stakes, what I'm talking about are the little direction stakes that the National Park, Everglades National Park puts out. You're going to run aground, and running aground is very bad, very expensive, and you won't wreck your boat. You get stuck in the muck, and then you'll owe somebody money, and there'll be a fine. You don't want to do that. So up here it's different. The bottom is grassy. It's beautiful, actually. There is some rocky areas, but not anywhere near like you see in other places. Like along the West Coast down around, 10,000 Islands, which are crazy oystery. You don't have a lot of that here. But the little creeks are a blast, and they're small enough to where only a boat could go through, and you have to watch the height sometimes. Put your rods down, if they're in a console holder. And the birds and the wildlife is incredible. And so that's what we set out to do. Janelle had not been up north. I went a few weeks ago, if you remember in my podcast. And so we got in the boat and we took off through Adams Cut, which is right here near us. That takes us into Blackwater Sound. We went across Blackwater Sound and went over into Barnes Sound. And then from Barnes, we cruised across that to Card Sound, went under the Card Sound Bridge, and then headed on up to northern Key Largo. It's hard to imagine that from our house, we are only a couple of miles from the 18-mile stretch. When you come down the 18-mile stretch and you turn to head south to Key West, we're at mile marker 104. So you've only driven a couple of miles on the island. It's hard for me to believe it takes 20 miles in the opposite direction to go up to the end of Key Largo. Key Largo is an extremely long island. But that's what we did. And once we got up there, we were able to explore those small little creeks up there, which I absolutely have fallen in love with. They're really, really neat. They're hard to fish. I'll tell you that right now. Lots of barracuda in there. But it's going to require a bait change. I'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to start throwing chunk baits and shrimp and stuff because these waters move fast. They're deep. And the artificials just don't pan out in that area like they do everywhere else. So more to learn. That's what it's like here. Always more to learn. So we cruised around in the creeks, found our way out and through a couple that we had no idea where we were. Yeah. If you look on a chart, you'll see what I'm talking about. Fine Ocean Reef, that's the really, really ritzy, nice tippy end of the island where all the very extremely wealthy folks live. Has a gate that only they can get through. And you'll see some beautiful homes up there too. So that's where we were. Then we decided to come home. I decided to come home on the ocean side. The winds were way down, below 5 miles an hour. And they were blowing slightly northeast instead of southeast like they usually are, which was kind of unusual. So I thought, well, let's just run the ocean. So we went out through the end of Angelfish Creek, and then headed south again, southwest actually, down the coastline, down the Key Largo coastline, which at that point, by the way, once you leave Ocean Reef, there's nothing to see. It is trees. Most of that, I believe, belongs to Pennicamp National Park, and it also, the Dagny Park, I believe, is probably I know it is a good portion of it, but it's fascinating to see this huge chunk of land covered in trees and covered in mangrove that nobody's bothered, which is really, really something. On the way down, we discovered some cleanup areas that Janelle and I have talked about. We're going to figure out a way to get in there. There's what I'll call devastation, if you will. It's not that big. Just picture a cove that was cut out by a storm. It could have been a water spout / tornado hit it, downburst, something killed all the trees in this area, and they're about 200 feet long, 300 feet long on the shoreline, and it just cut a swath. And in that is all this deadwood, and all this deadwood has caught a ton of crab pot stuff. The buoys, the lines, all the stuff off the crab pots is hanging in trees, and it's not good. This is the kind of thing the birds and wildlife get caught in, and that bothers the bejeebers out of me. So we've talked about a way to go back up there on a nice day and take some big plastic bags with us to see if we can't clean up some of that stuff, because it ain't right. So we did that. What else was? Oh yeah. When you go up the coastline, I don't know if many of you know this. I did a podcast about it. I may do some more about it again. There are missile stations along the island that have been deserted by the Army, Air Force. I think it's Army and Air. I'm not sure who ran those. I'll have to go back and look it up. I know the Army ran the bases, but I'm not sure who ran the missile silo stuff. But we had, back in the 60s, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had established missile systems and missile spotter systems with radar along the Florida Keys coastline. And up here in Key Largo, those places still exist. They're in ruins, but a lot of people, if you go online and just look up Key Largo missile sites, you'll see some really cool photography that these people have taken that have tromped back in the woods going looking for these things. And most of them are still there. Well, out in the water, there is a hump close to shore, maybe 50, 60 yards out, 100 yards, maybe 100 yards out. And it's obviously man-made. It's got rock all the way around it. It's about 100 by 100 feet, like an island. And I had to go look this up. I was told it had something to do with the missile stuff, but what it was it was a radar station that they put out on a man-made island that they made. And it's really cool to see it because it's piled up. It's got rocks around it. It's protected. It now has mangrove trees growing right in the middle of it. But you can see on the backside, there's deep, deep cuts where they dug out the sand and the mud and stuff to make this island so they could put this radar station on it. But if you look at the old pictures that are available on the web, you will see what I'm talking about, these giant radar things that they established in the woods. So apparently they thought it was a good idea to put one out there on the coast, and you motor right by it. There's fish on it too, by the way. Hint, hint. Of course there are. It's rocks, and it's the ocean. So I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to go back and check that out more thoroughly as well. And I might do another one of the missiles. I talked about that a long time ago in one of the podcasts because we had gone to the Bahamas, and there's stations in the Bahamas too that were established to keep an eye on things when there was a lot of trouble with the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 60s. A great many of you that listen probably aren't old enough to remember. I am old enough to remember. I was about 10 years old when that was going on. And at that age, it becomes noticeable. You start, because of your parents, you start to notice that something's not quite right. Hope that doesn't happen again. I really do. We also did double duty on this trip. This trip actually came about a few days ago, a few days before Sunday, I should say, that I told Janelle, I said, I want to get into growing mangrove, red mangrove. I enjoy it. I enjoy the plant I bought. I enjoy messing with it. I enjoy learning more about growing them. And so I said, I need propagules. If you don't know what that is, it's propagule. Let's see, Propagule, propagule. I think I spelled it right. I'm not the world's greatest speller, but I think that's right. Those are the cigars that hang off a red mangrove. See them everywhere, wherever you go. They'll be hanging and floating in the water, all on beaches, anywhere in Florida that has mangrove, you're going to find these cigars. And that cigar is very unique. It happens to be an entire plant. And so we went hunting for cigars that day. And believe it or not, we found most of them at the ramp that we put the boat in at. There's we live on Pennycamp National Park, Pennycamp State Park, and there are tons of mangroves in the state park. And whenever the wind blows and the rain comes, it obviously washes some up onto our ramp. And we found some really great specimens. What's a great specimen? Well, let me tell you, the propagule is an interesting creature. It's actually a plant. It's not a seed. So what the mangrove does is it blooms and then it creates another plant, and that's what hangs off the branches. And that cigar is all one plant. The bottom, the part that's going to root, is brown in color, brownish, darker in color, and then it's very, very green. And then at the top is a little cap on the top. And when that little cap pops off, you'll have two little leaves pop out. That's a mangrove tree. It's a mangrove plant, plain and simple. If you stick that thing in mud and keep water on it all the time, it will root and become a mangrove. And I am utterly fascinated by it. I can't tell you enough. After rescuing my big one had problems, and I didn't know what was wrong. And I started doing all this research. I'm like, oh, it was losing its leaves. It was looking wilty. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening to my plant? And I fixed it. I got it under control after reading, and Janelle helped with that. Janelle did some research as well, but we figured it out. So I got it situated. And so what I want to do now is grow some because I'm always finding propagules. And the ones we found, several of them already had roots on that lower end, had little roots sticking out. Now, rules and regulations. And then I'll talk about the potting of it if you're interested. You Florida people, you should get into this. It's pretty cool. And it's good for the environment. You can go replant them. You can go put them in your favorite fishing spots and start growing mangrove out there. The rules and regulations, you cannot take them off of a tree pretty much anywhere in the state, especially in state parks and in national parks. So Everglades National Park, totally no. State parks like Pennycamp next to us, no. You do not pull them off the tree. You need to find floating specimens, and floating specimens, from what I gather and what I read, is fair game. They're not worried about them when they're floating because there's literally thousands of these things, and most of them aren't fit to plant anyway. Now, what's fit to plant? Well, you got to really examine them. If they're nice, green, chunky, they don't have any splits in them, they don't have any rotten spots on them, they're pretty much good to go. You need to see the brown bottom, you need to see the cap on top still in place, or if it's popped, two little leaves sticking out, that's good too, or roots on the bottom. And those are good to plant. Those will generally survive if you plant them. But again, do not pull them off the bushes themselves, off the mangrove themselves. That's bad. You get in trouble for that. Don't do that. The potting of it's really pretty easy. What I learned, my mistake I had made on the one that we had, I had repotted it purely in potting soil, kept it nice and thick like muck and mud. The problem is when it rained a lot, the plant would start to float. It would actually come up out of the pot. Bad, very bad. So what is required is a mixture of sand and potting soil. Or potting, or just dirt, good old sandy dirt if you want to dig it. I can't dig that here in the Keys. We live on a rock, and it's impossible to do that in the Keys. So I create it. And I found that 50-50 seems to be the mix. 50% sand, 50% potting soil. You stir it up real good, and then you put it in the pot. You start by putting a rock field in you start by sealing up any hole in the bottom of the pot. If you've got like clay pots or something you've used for regular plants, you cannot have any water get through it. It has to hold water. So the first thing I do is go buy a tube of 5200. You boaters all know what that is. 5200 is a boat sealant that once you put it on, it ain't coming off. It's the best thing ever for fixing leaks or sealing a boat or sealing an area where you've screwed two things together and you want to make sure water does not get in. 5200 is the best stuff. I buy the fast dry because it'll set up within a couple of hours pretty well. Actually, it's set up within an hour in most cases. But anyway, 5200. You got to seal the holes in the bottom of pots. If there's one, easy. If there's several, you got to make sure they're all sealed. Then you put some rock in the bottom, about an inch worth, not much, just pebble rock, something in the bottom to let the water drain down to the bottom and sit on bottom. It's not going to drain out, remember that. And then a 50-50 mix of sand. We're talking about I call it kitty sand, that you put in a sandbox. Kitty sand and not kitty, not cat, kitty. And mix that with potting soil. And that's it. Basically, once you get it all set, you want to make sure that you leave an inch or two or a little more above the top of the soil. You're going to put water in this thing, and it's going to sit in water, and you keep it watered all the time. I have about 1.5 to 2 inches of water in the pot outside, and then that's where you hit the mud. It can go low tide. Don't worry about that. The water can evaporate. Animals will drink it. I mean, it'll slowly disappear over time if you don't get any rain. So you'll have to go back and add water to it. Fresh water is fine. It lives perfectly in fresh. As a matter of fact, the mangrove plant has the ability to exude the salt that it takes in when it sits in salt water. It does not use the salt water as a drink, if you will. So fresh is fine. That's why you see all the little yellow leaves on mangrove. It's extruding the salt through its leaves. And other ways, but mostly through its leaves. It also exudes it through its root system as well. So keep that in mind. Water's good. And keeping it wet all the time is also very good. You can't overwater it. Yay, a plant that you can't overwater. Amazing. It grows really fast too, by the way. Something that I think is really, really cool is mangrove grows a lot faster than I thought it did. I always thought it was real slow moving. It's not. Growing, rather, it's not. It'll be 2 feet tall within about 4 months. And in a year's time, it can grow up to 6 feet. So, and you'll be repotting if it gets to that point. You'll do what I did. You have to go get a much larger pot to put it in to keep it happy. But anyway, that's the thing. So I'm going to start growing it. I took a bunch of smaller pots and I sealed the holes up in it a couple of days ago to get ready for this, and I'm going to start doing it. And then, of course, I'll have to transplant these things. But I'm excited about it. I think it's neat, and it's also something that you can do environmentally that's really cool because you can take these small plants, take them out of the mud and the muck, and take them out and plant them in areas that are important to you. If you have places back in the back country, things like that, where you see the mangroves have worn out or they've been killed because of storms and things like that, you can replace them. And mangrove is a very, very good thing for the shorelines of Florida. Island life. I made a note, just says island life. I did that for a reason. I've got observations again that I just want to share with you. We've been living on this island now for a couple of years, and it's really, really cool. We didn't know. You just don't know. I mean, we both lived coastal for quite a while, together and alone. Growing up, we lived in coastal towns and coastal cities and things like that, and beachy places. And of course, we did Fort Lauderdale for a while, almost 3 years, I guess, in Fort Lauderdale, right next to the beach. But this place is just amazing. There are things you got to get used to. There's one road, and there ain't no big stores. You got Publix. And Publix subs, yay. But you got not much else. Small family hardware stores, which are fantastic. Small garden centers, love it. Lots and lots of tackle shops, lots and lots of boat places. No problem getting your boat fixed down here. You may have struggled with your car, but no problem with your boat. I think what it is it just seems healthier to me. That's the only way I can put it. Everyone here seems to be very happy. We have very few grumps. And if we have grumps here, they came from somewhere else. And you should go home. Please. Seriously. The neighbors are great. We enjoy life outside. We're not an inside version of people. And I think that has a lot to do with the healthiness and the way that you feel, because you don't coop up inside unless the humidity is 9,000%. But that doesn't last, thank goodness. I find people to be very, very friendly here. And I find it's fun to just, eat out in places you haven't eaten out at before, try experiment, because there's thousands of restaurants. And the exploration that we do in the boat is very special. It's really interesting to put a boat in and suddenly realize that you really are. We circumvented Key Largo on Sunday. We went out one way, went all the way around the island, and came back on water. You suddenly realize, hey, we really are an island. we really are completely circled by water. Little things like that, really, really, really cool. I do get this, though, from other people listening. They'll go, but there's hurricanes. Yes, there are. Tropical storms, all kinds of fun weather. But look at the U.S. for crying out. There's nowhere you can live, at least not that I'm aware of, where something can't get you. We go all the way west to California. They've been dealing with fires for years now. Mudslides, horrible mudslides, because the fire burns off all the stuff. Then the rain comes and washes the side of a mountain down on top of your house. Earthquakes out west, central. Tornadoes, oh my gosh, this has been Tornado Alley's probably worst year in a long time in the center of the U.S. Erosion on the California coast, erosion in South Carolina, erosion up that way. We've got houses falling into the water. They also get hurricanes, by the way. So you can't just throw hurricanes at us and say, I'm not going there because of hurricanes. You don't want to come here. You might not want to come for lightning. I think that's more apt to get you than a hurricane. Be careful. We had a young man got killed up in, I can't remember, I think it was in Homestead, not far from here, or Florida City. Just walking, I think he was walking home from school and lightning got him. That's tragic. So what I'm trying to point out is things happen everywhere. You certainly can't say, I'm not going to live on an island in the Keys because of hurricanes. That's just not a good excuse. It's an excuse, but not a good one. So I'm prattling again. That's what I plan on doing this season. You all better get used to it. Snook season opens down here in the Keys on October the 1st. Yippee-ki-yay. That's next Tuesday. I haven't eaten a snook in years, but you never know. Admittedly, it's pretty tough to find one in the slot, but I am so tempted. I do remember how good they taste, and there is a possibility that if I get a legal one this season, I might go ahead and cook it up. I probably won't talk about it a lot because it'll just piss off a whole mess of people, but hey, think of all the ones I've released, okay? I've done my part. Ladies, Let's Go Fishing is returning to the Keys on October the 18th through the 20th. You gals out there, you want to get a hands-on instruction on fishing, you need to get in on this. It's really cool. I taught at it last year here in the Keys, and I've taught several times in the Naples and Fort Myers area for this, and it's really a great, great class for the ladies. Let's see, ladiesletsgofishing.com. There you go. You can get a whole lot more information. This year it's going to be in Tavernier, which is where it was last year, as a matter of fact. And I look forward to it. I will be there as an instructor on Saturday. I believe that's the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. But so check it out. Special bundled pricing on my books, $45, including shipping for all three. They're available on the website at catchyOutdoors.com. Titles are What I Know About Fishing Southwest Florida, Bridge to Paradise, and Take a Kid Fishing. Get them while you can. Thank you for the orders that I've gotten. I really appreciate it. And I have them left. I have plenty left, actually. I thought I'd get rid of more than I did, but whatever. These are going to be with me for a while. It's nothing like over-ordering on your book order. Anyway, get them while you can. This is a great price. And I'm running this through September, and I might extend it because I've still got books, but let's just say it's going to end in September. I got 3 newly released songs available on iTunes. They're also available for listening on a bunch of the streaming services. Alligator Church, Guiding Light, and Bayou Bay are the latest, with Bayou Bay being my first reggae tune, and that's what you heard at the very beginning. And we'll hear at the end, you'll hear the musical part of it. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I'm really going to look at live and frozen bait more than I have in the past, especially for fishing up against mangroves and stuff for snapper and things like that. It's apparent to me that these fish are smarter than hell, and they do not cotton very well to artificials. They do like certain artificials, like the pink ones I've been using, but once you catch one, the rest of them go and they won't have anything to do with it. So I'm going to break down. I have a net. I might throw it. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I'm capable of throwing it anymore with my health the way it is, but I've got a smaller 8-foot. I don't have one of those giant 10 or 12, so I might try it. I might just try it. But if nothing else, I'm going to go seriously into cut baits, chunkins, stuff like that. Anything that I can throw at them that I think they might eat. Okay, I can see that's true confession time right there. Over the past couple of years, I've found some great spots for fish, and I've hit it with artificials, and I've caught fish there. But they always seem to be smaller. That's something else I've noticed. The fish that I catch on artificial always seem to be smaller than the ones I catch on bait. So I gotta work on this. And also on the artificials, it seems to always be the same fish. It's cudas, jacks, snook, and trout. And I'm not saying snook are dumb, but I'm pretty happy they like artificials because not many other fish go for that. I mean, muttons on an artificial, I've seen it done, but it's almost impossible. And there are many other fish like that won't fool around with them. So cudas, that's fine. Jacks are fine. I mean, I like catching them. And trout, of course. Trout have always loved artificial. Never had a problem with that. Again, it gets back to the small stuff, though. Most of the fish I catch are smaller when it comes to artificials versus bait. So snook aren't dumb. They just react. They're cool. You put it in exactly the right place. A snook, he doesn't even think twice. I don't think he eyeballs and goes, what's that? I think he just attacks it. So I'm not going to pick on snook. Probably won't be doing it next week, though. Going to be windy here. Whew. Not going to be fun, y'all. What happens when a storm builds in the lower Gulf of Mexico down by Yucatan, starts to cruise up into the Gulf of Mexico and comes within reach of Florida's coastline, west coastline? We get it too. We get feeder bands. We get a tremendous amount of wind pulled in from the east. So we'll wind up with, they're already talking about just below gale force winds for us on Thursday or maybe Friday. So prepare yourself. It's going to be messy. So, oh, yeah. I want to talk about this. An incident happened down here a while back, about several weeks ago, and it led me to keeping an eye out while underway on your boat. We had a thing called the Alligator Lighthouse Swim down here. It's traditional. It's done every year. It raises money, lots of money, actually. And what it is a 4 mile out, 4 mile back swim. It's an 8 mile round trip for swimmers from the shoreline out to Alligator Reef. They turn around the backside of the reef and they come up the light and they come back. Heavily protected. Lots of kayaks have to accompany all the swimmers, boaters, police from every type of force, sheriff, Coast Guard, FWC, everybody's out there. This year, we had a clown, I hope he listens to this, in a cruiser, big boat, and he was coming toward the swimmers from the south and he would wind up going right through the middle of them. He had gone below too, and I don't know exactly what, mix a drink, make a sandwich, whatever he was doing, he'd gone below and he was away from the helm. And the helicopter, FWC, spotted the fact there was no one at the helm, and this thing is cruising right for 300 swimmers. Bad, very bad. And what ultimately happened was this extremely quick-thinking pilot on one of the helicopters dove down on top of him and basically buzzed the hell out of him. You can imagine what that must have sounded like. And it got him coming up from below, and he looked around and realized that was him, and they stopped. And I think they arrested him. I think the other boats closed in on him, and that was that. But my point here is he could have killed somebody easily. If it wasn't a kayaker, it would have been a swimmer, or it would have been both. He was not paying attention. He was not at the helm. You can't do that. Don't boat like that. Never, ever leave the helm when the boat is underway. Don't do that. Even on a small boat, you're on a flat skiff and you turn around to go get back in the cooler and the boat's running. And my boat runs this way. My boat, I can point it and it stays. It doesn't wander very much, which is nice, by the way. But you got to bring the throttle back, put it in neutral, let the boat slow down, then roam around. If you're going to go down below and you're going to mix a drink, which you shouldn't be doing anyway because you're the captain, you're going to go down there and make a sandwich. Let's call it that. Go down there and get a Coke out. You can't do that while that boat's underway on autopilot. Turn off the autopilot, shut down the throttles. You can idle if you want. Not idle, I mean, idle the motor. You don't want to be underway. And then go down there and do your business and come back. I got to go to the bathroom. Go down there and go to the bathroom. But don't do it while you're underway. You have to have a spotter all the time on a boat. You never know what's going to happen. Okay? That was my lecture for the day. That really chapped me when I read that. I thought, man, this is crazy. To the foodies out there, you food people, especially visitors, I keep seeing this post on Facebook a lot, mostly. They go something like this: where's a good place to eat in the Keys? The Keys are 100 miles long, people. And there's tons of places to eat. If you're going to be visiting here, that's cool. And I love the visitor sites because we have a lot of them on Facebook. Some of them are kind of hokey, but other ones are pretty good. The questions always get asked like that. It's a whole string of where are you going? What island are you planning on going to? Are you going to Key West, Key Largo, in between, Marathon, Island Murano? Where are you going? That kind of needs to be something you tell everybody. And then you're just going to get opinions. So specify, what do you eat? You like fish? You like beef? We got some great steak restaurants here. Most people don't realize that, but we do. And the one thing that really crops up is the beach. I love this question. We're coming to the Keys, and where's the best beach? Well, the best beach is in Fort Lauderdale. Or you might want to travel to Sanibel or Fort Myers Beach. We have only, this is just my opinion, we have 3 beaches that are fairly natural. We have Smathers Beach down in the Keys, Key West. We have Sombrero Beach, which is on Marathon. That's a beautiful beach. And we have Bahia Honda State Park, which has a gorgeous beach. Those beaches, however, have sand fills just like most beaches do, and some artificial sands, things like that. But we don't do beaches in the Keys. We do rock. We do coral. If you go to the beach here, you wear shoes. It's really crazy. We're coastal, I guess you can call it. We have coastlines where you can visit. A lot of our resorts have poured sand. They bring sand in and they create little beaches. That's great. It's perfect. It really is. But to ask a question like, where's the best beach to go to? Like you're going to go visit a great big beach like you would somewhere else. That doesn't happen here. So I want to get that out there. Stop asking that question, please. Oh goodness. Wow, I've talked a long time today. This is fun. I kind of like it. It's time now for useless information. As I mentioned before, this ain't going away. It can't go away. I might be taken out and, 40 lashes with a wet noodle kind of thing. Here we go.
And now, from the original book of useless information.
You are a reject! You are useless! You can get a job down here cleaning toilets!
Here's your host, Captain Rob Modies.
Well, he swears up and down he's useless, but
he might be all right eventually, but completely useless.
With useless information.
This section of the book is called Soda or Pop. Depends on where you're from as to what you call it. Fanta Orange is the 3rd largest selling soft drink in the entire world. Wow. Coca-Cola was originally green. I did not know that. Did you know a can of Diet Coke will float in the water while a can of regular Coke sinks? And last but not least, Pepsi is commonly used by wooden boat owners to clean mold from their decks. You can spill it on for about 30 seconds, but it needs to be rinsed off right away to be sure it does not erode the decks completely. Oh my, and you drink that stuff. Wow. And there you go till next week. And before I go, some final words. That's another thing that's not going away. Welcome to Season 4. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. I really enjoy your emails and your texts. Keep them coming. If you're a new listener, thank you for giving it a try. And if you've been listening for a while, please share this with someone else. I don't do advertising, not yet, but I like to see podcast growth. And that is mostly by you all not just liking it, but also sharing it. So please tell someone, please. It's very much appreciated by me. Hope everyone has a great week. I'll talk to y'all next week. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed listening, please tell a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. The website's catchoutdoors.com, where you can find all the previous podcasts and news about books and my music. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.